Welcome to Comment with me, George Galloway, here on Press TV, still the voice of the voiceless. But if this is going to be the great debate, it's going to need your telephone call. 44208-601-4555. That's the number to call. You call us, we'll call you back. Establish a clear line. And remember, if you get on the television with me, we'll turn the volume on your television down to 0, or no one will understand either of us. You can SMS the show also on 447800008066 or email me at comment@presstv.co.uk. The Syrian rebels, they'll eat your heart out and your liver, or maybe it was the lung. The world reeled during the week as video emerged of just about the most horrific thing ever seen on television. I myself was unable to watch it in total. But I did know that it marked a turning point in Western public opinion about the role of their governments paying for the kind of bestiality that is now all over the internet and occasionally nowadays on television. Summary executions, and in the most horrific of all, a named commander from Homs of the Free Syrian Army, so-called, being paid for by British and American taxpayers, has himself videoed as he cuts open the chest of a dead Syrian soldier, takes out his heart and eats it as a cannibal, takes out his liver and eats it as a wild beast. Although his comrade later clarified that it was not in fact the liver, but the lung. That's all right then, I suppose. David Cameron, you're paying for this. William Hague, you're paying for this. These beasts, these savages, these barbarians, shouting in the name of God, whilst they slaughter and butcher anyone who worships Islam in a different way to them, or if they're Christians, worships God in a different way to them. What are you doing, man? What's going to become of Syria if these people come to power in Damascus? Are you insane? Have you gone mad? That's all I'm saying. And it's what taxpayers all over the Western world are saying as they struggle to keep their breakfasts down when they watch these images. It was difficult to avoid being ill if you were anywhere near Wembley Stadium in London this week, as a stadium full of fans of Israel danced on the graves of the Nakba, danced on the graves of the Palestinian people and their villages, their homes and their communities that 65 years ago, this very week, were destroyed. Almost 1 million Palestinians were driven from their homes, from their land, from their country, which was then wiped off the map. That almost 1 million is now almost 13 million, with the right to return, as one day they shall return, as their country's name, Palestine, will return to the map, God willing. But there were demonstrations aplenty here in Britain and around the world in defense of Palestinian rights. And here in Britain, unemployment, poverty, immiseration stalks the land. Unemployment has risen again. People are committing suicide because of the Tory Lib Dem government's brutal policies of destroying the welfare state built up over decades in Britain. A man just set himself on fire and committed suicide because of the economic situation that this government has plunged him into the government and the government before it, the system that both of them worship. Mammon is what they worship. Adam is on the line from London. He wants to talk about that as well as the Syrian imbroglio. Adam, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you very much, George. It's been a while.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
But what can we do? Now the Syria problem is becoming a problem of the world because Great Britain, United States of America are now traveling to see Mr. Putin to find a solution to the problem. In the first place, this shouldn't have happened because when we started supporting rebels, faceless people, exporting people to Syria to overthrow Assad just because of Iran, this problem shouldn't have come in the first place. Secondly, why should Israel go and bomb Damascus, certain part of Damascus, of which they have not, up till today, authenticated that they did it, but it's a known secret that they have done it. The question is, we bite too much that we cannot chew. In Libya today, Libya is becoming Somalia. When it started, we all said what the West is doing is not just to get rid of Gaddafi, but to sabotage the people of the North Africa, to ruin the economy of the North African people, for them to be coming here and be called slaves. So what we are saying today is Great Britain, United States of America, and France should be wary of what they are doing today because tomorrow they will be paid for it. We never had London bombing until 7/7. What brought it? Because Mr. Bush and Tony Blair went to Iraq to kill Saddam Hussein. That made people became more conscious about what they are doing in regards to them also retaliating to certain things that is happening. It is all bad. What we want to know today is the people of Syria must decide their own destiny. Syrians should have the right to say that we want this man or we want this government, but no Western world or any other person to go to another sovereign country to tell them that we want you to impose or we want you to have this man as the president or the leader of your country, whereas they haven't been there. Their intelligence are not even there. They don't know what is going on there. But for their selfish interests, they would rather go and sell weapons and arms to these people.
Well, it's not that they're selling them, Adam. They're giving them away at our expense. David Cameron, just in this cash-strapped country that can't keep its pensioners warm, can't give its people jobs, can't afford its public services, can't afford to educate our children. Just this week we gave another 40 million to these cannibals who are eating people's hearts on video, asking their friends to film them, eating people's hearts. 40 million more we just gave them this week, Adam. Patrick's on the line from Doncaster about the UK. And in Doncaster, Patrick, you know a thing or two about poverty and unemployment.
We certainly do, George. The food bank in the little area that I come from in Doncaster, Conisbrough, has opened up recently, and unfortunately it's a case of the council have told one man, here's some money, here's some tinned food, get on with it. And the people in this area and in other areas, poverty areas in Doncaster, are really struggling. And the only support we've got in terms of a food bank, of which use is rocketing in this country, is one man and a van. It's disgusting. On top of that, the job centre at Christmas ran out of money. Can you believe it? The job centre ran out of money. They weren't able to pay anyone any money because they ran out. I've got a friend who works in the job centre and he had to deny people's money benefit because they simply ran out. There was no more money left in the pot. David Cameron's Britain. What do you have to say about that then, George? David Cameron's Britain.
I don't think I have to add. to what you've said, Patrick, from the north, from Yorkshire, where the job centre ran out of money at Christmas, and where food banks, for international viewers, food banks in Britain, the fourth or fifth largest economy in the world just a couple of years ago, they're giving out free food to hungry people who have no jobs and cannot live on the benefits that the state is now prepared to pay them. In a country that's never done invading and occupying other people's countries, has unlimited money to bomb and rocket, invade and occupy other people's countries, has unlimited money to renew nuclear weapons, multiply improving or increasing, enhancing the firepower of the United Kingdom's nuclear fleet, whilst in Iran they're ready to bomb and missile Iran, which doesn't have any nuclear weapons at all. Why do you think that might be? Because Iran doesn't follow their orders. That's why. Here's Majid from there, from the great city of Tehran, on the Syrian question, on the line. Majid, welcome.
Hello, sir.
Good evening. Go ahead.
Good night.
Go ahead.
God bless you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Well, you are indeed the voice of the voiceless.
Press TV is the voice of the voiceless, and it's given me this priceless platform, and I thank them, and I thank Iran for that platform.
Yeah, and we thank you too.
Thank you.
Well, the shocking scene we saw regarding eating the heart of the Syrian soldier by a cannibal, as you mentioned, and the mass execution we saw today, shows how savage and barbarian Bashar Assad's enemies are.
Indeed. I think if you, Majid, if you can judge a man by his enemies, then this Bashar must be quite a man, because the kind of people that are lined up against him, these cannibals, these beasts that eat human hearts and livers, and ask someone to film them while they're doing it, with their allies, Israel, Britain, France, the United States, Saudi Arabia, and a petrol station called Qatar. If that's his enemies, I'm not in any doubt which side I'm on. Are you?
Yes.
Sorry, Majid, go ahead.
All imperial powers and their reactionary regimes have united against the only independent Arab country, which is the only true supporter of the Palestinian cause. And that's the whole story. And,
Majid, we're with you there.
Yes.
Thank you for a good call. Forgive me if I press on, because the calls are building up. Mahmoud is on the line from Sweden about Syria. Mahmoud, welcome.
Hello, George. Nice to have me again.
And to you, sir. Go ahead.
George Galloway, these things happen repeatedly and repeatedly again. This is nothing new. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, starting from South Korea, Vietnam, and they get away with it. Millions were killed in South Korea, in Korea. Millions were killed in Vietnam. And now we see this disgusting thing happening in Syria. And before it was Libya and Iraq. And they get away with it. Now, what my point of view is, how are we going to put an end to this kind of issue? Is to bring into justice and to indict these people. Bush, Blair, and whatever we call David Cameron, Obama, all these people, and Henry Kissinger for the Vietnamese, he's still alive. What do you call that guy, the Prime Minister? Ford, Gerald Ford is dead. But Kissinger, he was awarded a Nobel Prize, and he's a war criminal. They are all criminals. We have to put this on an end, that it shouldn't happen. It will help.
Look, Mahmoud, it's very simple. I'll tell you how they get away with it. They get away with it because the Muslim world lets them get away with it. Because it's easy as pie to turn one Muslim against another Muslim, to turn one Arab against another Arab, whether on the basis of Sykes-Picot, fake borders, fake flags, invented countries, invented by foreigners in London in Parliament where I have sat for the last 25 years, or nowadays on a sectarian basis, turning one against the other, divide and rule. There are no shortage of fools in the Muslim world that will cut other Muslims' hearts out and eat them for the edification of the kuffar, of the West, of the people who dislike all the Muslims, but who are ready to ally with first this, then that tendency or sect as far as it suits them from any point in time. Forgive me if I'm angry, Mahmoud. There's plenty to be angry about. Lever is on the line in Manchester, in England, about the situation in the UK. Lever, welcome to the show.
Oh, George, it's always a privilege.
And you, sir, go on.
Just some information for the British sleeping public. I want to comment on the unemployment figure of 2.5 million and how the figures are manipulated.
Yeah, sure.
If you are in any of these groups, you are not on the official unemployment list. Number one, in training but still looking for work. Number two, working for 1 hour or more a week and looking for work. Doing any voluntary work and looking for paid employment, still not on the list. Forced work for no pay under the workfare scheme and looking for paid employment, not on the list. In a work group, filling in your CV, not on the list. Had your employment spot allowance taken away from you because you would not work for £59 a week benefit, not on the list. If you are not registered unemployed but looking for work, not on the list. In hospital, not on the list. The real figure is between 5 and 7 million.
And then there's the people on disability, the people on sickness benefit. You're right, Lever. I used the figure earlier today of 5 million, but it will be, as you have very helpfully adumbrated the categories that are not counted as unemployed in Britain. And then we should add those in part-time employment who would rather and need to be in full-time employment. Then there's those who are underemployed, who are highly qualified but working in unqualified jobs. There are millions, it's in double figures, of the kind of people who are the number of people who are not gainfully, properly employed in a Britain that has unlimited budgets for war. Lever, thanks as always. Mohammed's on the line from Montreal in Canada about Syria. Mohammed, welcome to the show. Mohammed?
Hello, hi George, how you doing?
Assalamu alaikum, welcome, go ahead.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If there were only one more person like you doing this kind of job like you do on the board, would be a better place. I've been meaning to talk to you on your show for the longest time. Thanks. Thank you, alhamdulillah, I'm speaking today. I would like to speak about what's happening in Syria and all these jihadis cutting people's liver or heart or fighting so-called Islamic war. This is bullshit. Everybody has to know these people are being paid by Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UK, United States. This is the result of what they're doing. There's nowhere in the Quran or the Hadith is being said that you have to humiliate a dead person's body. Nowhere. They're fighting Assad. For what reason?
It's forbidden. It's forbidden.
What is the reason they're fighting Assad for? They're calling Assad Alawi or Shia. But he's the one who's helping the Palestinians, the so-called Sunni. And they're fighting him for what reason? This is nonsense. We can't live in this kind of world like that. It's good that they put on display on TV like that so that the Americans, they see the result of the financing of the people that they so-called terrorists or jihadists or freedom fighter. This is nonsense.
Well, that's where their tax dollars went, Mohammed. That's where their tax pounds went. They went to buy the knife that cut the chest of a son of Syria in uniform, conscripted soldier, by the way, to cut out his heart and eat it and be so proud of it that you ask the guy with a camera, also paid for by the British and American taxpayers, to film you doing it. And after the film was released, when the so-called Syrian opposition were running for cover, alleging that it was a fake video, some even wrote to me saying it was Israelis who did it, who were pretending to be Muslims, pretending to shout Allahu Akbar. Out came the man and admitted, and he said he had other videos of him cutting people's heads off if we would like to see them. That's where the tax dollars went, Mohammed. That's where the tax pounds went. British and American taxpayers need to wake up to what their government is doing on their behalf. Katie is on the line in Devon, in England, about the situation in the UK. Katie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, George, for having me on the show.
You're welcome. Go ahead.
I just want to say that what's happening in the UK to the most vulnerable, poor and disabled people is just evil. I help out at a food bank, and some of the stories that are coming in are just so shocking and so needless. For instance, there was a 48-year-old man. He's worked all his life, but he was made unemployed because the local business went out. And he's been unemployed for a year, and I live in a rural area, and he had to get the bus for his interview to the job centre, and the bus was 10 minutes late. And this is a rural area, and they just cut his benefits off, and it wasn't just him they're punishing, it's his 3 children as well. This is a grown man, a father, coming in embarrassed because his job centre cut off his money and made his children hungry. And I've also got a friend who was declared fit for work by ATOS, and he'd been looking after his sister and his wife for 5 years. Both of them died of breast cancer, and he was very depressed and everything after dealing with that, and ATOS declared him fit for work, so he went home and he tried to kill himself. And I also have another friend, a young, lovely, beautiful young man in his early 20s. He was born with a very serious heart defect, and he had open heart surgery twice, and he went to an ATOS medical, and he was declared fit for work, and he died of a massive cardiac arrest weeks after, leaving behind a widow and an 18-month-old child. And the worst thing is the government and its henchmen in the media, they've convinced even reasonable people that the poor are to blame for the so-called crisis. And it isn't the poor who need punishing, it's the criminal wealthy elite. Unemployment is created on purpose to drive wages down, and homelessness is created on purpose to drive house prices up, so that everybody becomes a slave to the banks and big mortgages. This is disaster capitalism in action. They create disasters and then they line their pockets. And what really upsets me is that most individual ministers and coalition members must be aware of this, meaning that they are knowingly attacking and castigating the homeless and unemployed whilst deliberately creating the crisis to suit their own neoliberal agenda. It's cruel and callous, and it's causing real human suffering and tragedy. It is a government for the rich, by the rich, and it's both evil and divisive. And that's what I wanted to say.
Well, that's not just the best call of tonight, Katie, but the best call for a very long time. A young woman called Katie in Devon, a very beautiful rural part of the United Kingdom, painting a picture of life in David Cameron's Britain that Charles Dickens could have written more than 100 years ago, when the gap between rich and poor in Britain is wider than it was when Dickens wrote Oliver Twist, the classic tale of squalor amidst plenty. Katie has brought us back down to earth here in David Cameron's Britain. Cruel and callous is the name of the United Kingdom today. I'll be back, God willing, after the news in just a few minutes' time. Don't go away. Welcome back to Comment with me, George Galloway, here on Press TV, which is still the voice of the voiceless. We're talking about Syria, where the British and American taxpayers are paying for the knives and the video cameras that carry out the kind of atrocities that we saw emerging in the last few days with a commander in the Free Syrian Army, so-called, cutting out the heart and the liver of a Syrian soldier and eating it, all the while chanting Allahu Akbar. And we're talking about the atrocity of Israelis celebrating, dancing on the graves of the victims of the Nakba. 65 years ago, Palestine was wiped off the map, and the Palestinian people terrorized, murdered, stampeded, terrified, out of their homes, their land, out of their country, which was then promptly abolished. And we're talking about Britain. Cruel and callous, said Katie from Devon. And who will argue with that? Let's go to Nigeria for the first call in the second half from Jude about Syria. Jude, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I want to thank you for your comments, as in you are the voice of the people. I must really comment for this.
Thanks, Jude. Thanks.
I must comment for this. I wonder if the United States of America and the UK are watching this program.
Be sure about that. You can be sure about that, Jude.
If they could sponsor a program like where these so-called Syrian free fighters are killing people, mass murder, that is not obtainable.
I'll tell you what we'll do, Jude. We'll send the DVD of tonight's program to Downing Street and ask them to comment on it. What do you think?
I think that is very, very serious, because you cannot claim that you are sponsoring for peace, or you are trying to make a regime change in a country, and you watch these same people you are spending your money on killing the same people whom they should be protecting, or something like that. But I think this is very wrong for the United States of America.
It's a kind of madness. It's a kind of insanity, Jude, because I asked the question rhetorically at the beginning of the show, what do they imagine would happen if these people who eat other people's hearts and lungs and livers and think that it's something that should be filmed and celebrated, what kind of country do they think that Syria would be? It wouldn't be Afghanistan under the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. It wouldn't be Somalia. It would be far, far, far worse than that. And on the Mediterranean, a European lake, in a most sensitive geostrategic place, surrounded by multi-ethnic, multi-sect, multi-religious countries on either side of them. Lebanon, Iraq. Are they insane, these people, Jude? Do they think that commander who cut out the heart and ate it can govern in Damascus without catastrophic consequences for everyone? It's a kind of madness, I tell you. Saeed's on the line from Iran to talk about this very subject, and Israel in particular. Saeed, go ahead.
Hello, sir. First of all, I would like to appreciate your efforts on this current crisis.
Thank you, sir.
First of all, I would like to say that this is not the first time in the Middle East the current things are happening, the current crisis is running. First of all, it was Afghanistan, then it's Iraq, and then the crisis in Egypt, and then now in Turkey and also in Syria. I don't know where this thing is going to end. These things are where. Is Iran going to involve in these things? If so, then first of all, I would like to say that we are always in the defense position. Whenever these things happen, and whenever each and every Islamic country is being involved in such crisis, we stand in the defense position. Always we start making protests and all such things, and we don't do any military operation or something. I know it is not allowed in Islam, attack the innocent people, but then against the army, we can at least do something. Like, it's not going to end, I think. Next, maybe probably it's Iran, maybe it's Pakistan. Pakistan, it's worse, it's worse now. Americans are in Pakistan as well. Americans can go anywhere now. Israelis can go anywhere now. From 65 years, Palestine is suffering. I don't know where this thing is going to end and what is the possible solution.
Well, look, Said,
from you the permanent solution.
The Americans are not in Pakistan, and they will never be in Pakistan. They're bombing Pakistan. They're sending drones to murder large numbers of people in Pakistan. They have the politicians in their pocket in Pakistan, but they cannot go to Pakistan. Israel cannot go to Pakistan. Israel cannot go to Iran. Israel cannot go to Gaza. So I understand the point you were making, and I understand your feelings. But let's not build our enemies up as if they were a million James Bonds. They're very far from that. And there are many people have made it impossible for the United States and Israel to be anywhere like the countries I have talked about and you have talked about. The Americans had hundreds of thousands of soldiers in Iraq, but they never ruled a single street in Iraq for a single day in Iraq. Thanks, Saeed. Tony's in London on both our subjects, Israel, Palestine and Syria. Tony, welcome.
Hello, George. Nice again speaking to such...
And to you, sir. Go ahead.
Right. George, it's 2 points here. Now, the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is becoming an international sympathy seeker. He realizes support for Israel is rapidly eroding away. Many of my friends in the United States say quite openly that if only the American taxpayer had known all along how much of their hard-earned money was filtered into Israel, support for Israel would have withered away years ago. But now the American people are wide awake as a whole, are asking very serious questions. No longer can their government conceal what was all these years a secret, deceiving agenda. And we're going to now the unemployment in this country, George.
Yeah.
We tried to shoot Iran from the hip by stifling their economy, but we've shot ourselves in the heel. Because India, China, Russia, South America, they're all queuing up to do business with Iran. And why don't we do the same? Tell the Israelis and the Americans to get out of it and do business with Iran. Look at how our economy will improve, and the French, and all those who are hell-bent on trying to destroy the Iranian economy. We will gain much more by doing business with Iran. I don't know what you think, George.
I agree entirely. And Britain is following a foreign policy which is in very many respects, on many levels, an anti-British foreign policy. It's as if we had traitors at the top of the state who are governing in the interests of others rather than in the interests of our own people. Aidan's always worth hearing. He's in London. He wants to talk about Israel. Aidan, welcome back.
Hi, George. How are you? Thanks for having me back.
Welcome, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've been without Wi-Fi for 2 weeks now, and I've been unable to watch Press TV. Instead, I've been watching Channel 4 and Al Jazeera in the hope of getting the latest news on Palestine. But if it were not for your statement on Facebook, it would have gone completely unnoticed that it had been 65 years since the Al-Nakba. That's the kind of censorship the Jewish Zionist war criminals exercise over the British media. Yeah. The sickening lapdoggery the British Parliament gives to the Zionist regime has to be made accountable for, George. I believe that the definition of Zionism should be exclusively coupled up with anti-Semitism. This way we can then label any support of the Zionist entity as promoting racial and religious hatred. And this way, under the new hate speech legislation that we have here in the UK, we can take legal action against the pro-Zionist government which rules upon us, the media and the business that fund their hatred. In doing this, these perpetrators think twice before they try to cover up the murders that take place on a daily basis in Palestine. I mean, what I'm trying to say is Zionism should be the same as anti-Semitism.
Well, it is actually other side.
George,
yeah.
A Jew who hates should be the same as someone who hates Jews.
Well, I think that's a powerful point, that Zionism is the other side of the same coin as anti-Semitism. As I tried to expand upon here last week, catch up with it, Aidan, on YouTube, I was making the very same point, that anti-Semitism says that an English Jew is not really English. That even if his family have lived in England for 1,000 or 2,000 years, because he's a Jew, he's not really English. Therefore, he must leave England and go and live in somebody else's country, in somebody else's house, on somebody else's line. That's what anti-Semitism says. Zionism says actually the very same thing. And in that sense, they conflate. They have done over the whole course of the history of the Zionist movement. In any case, as you have pointed out before, the Palestinians themselves are Semites. Arabs are Semites. Most Israelis are not Semites. They're Jews, which is a religion which anyone can convert to. They can be Chinese. They can be Ethiopian. They can be from Kazakhstan. They can be from Paris. They could be me. They could be you. We could become Jews. It won't make us Semites. Hating what we stand for will not make the hater an anti-Semite, but merely a hater of our political, ideological views. We have to be clear about saying that. Mohsen's on the line in London about Syria. Mohsen, welcome.
Hi, George. How are you?
By the grace of God, I'm good. Please go ahead.
Yes, George. I really, first of all, thank you, the Press TV, have an opportunity to express my views on the Syrian execution of the soldiers and the eating their organs. Personally, I think the people who are doing this and the people who are backing up, and they are really, is not even, you can say they are human. They are not even a human as well. And there's a shame for the human. They are like animals. They're worse than like the animals.
And they were shouting the name of, they were shouting the name of God as they did it.
Yes, the God created human and animals both. The God created animals as well, because the God said that you must, and the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that when you see the animals, you must think that a man, a human, it must become an animal. Man is not, because animals have 4 legs and a human have 2 legs. So is a human, he can become an animal when he do like a destruction like that. So is not any human can do that. And secondly, and still these all Western countries, including UK and Europe and America, and they all giving weapons to these rebels.
Yes, yes.
And
you
secondly,
saw, Mohsen, did you see the film earlier of these Syrian soldiers being summarily executed with bullets in the back of their heads? Those guns and those bullets were given to those people by us, by our taxes.
And our taxpayer money,
yes,
they give to these people, while the people of Britain and people of UK, they're starving for hunger, and people, they don't have houses, the people, they don't have even the 1 or 2 times food as well. So people sleeping in the central London streets, and must be David Cameron and his old regime. If they call the regime, they must see the people sleeping outside the, I can walk to the Victoria Station.
Mohsen, people are committing suicide now in England. Yes. Because they simply despair at their situation.
Yes. And if this David Cameron gives 60 million pounds to the Syrian rebels, why not the 60 million pounds, the taxpayer money, they spent on the people who are starving in the UK and in all over the...
Yeah. Well, we've actually given 300 million. We gave 40 million just this week. That's an additional 40 million. Listen, Mohsen, thanks for the call. I'm pressing on only because there are so many on the line. Hussein is on the line from Bahrain about Syria. Hussein, welcome to the show.
Yeah, George, salam alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Okay, I have to speak about the Syria.
Yeah.
I have a couple of points.
Yeah.
The Syria problem actually is coming, what you call this, it's a plan to have the buffer zone or what you say, and adjacent to the Golan Heights. It gives to the Kurdish autonomy, and that was a plan by Zionists, and take the permanently Golan Heights for the Israelis.
Well, they have them permanently. They've had them for 45 years permanently. How permanent do you want?
They want to divide. They want to divide the Syria.
Sure.
This is the plan.
They want to divide. They want to divide all the Arab countries. Hussein, they want to divide all the Arab countries, all the Muslim countries.
No, at the moment is the Syria. They target the Syria now. Syria, if they target that one, and then really take permanently Golan Heights, and they make the buffer zone or the divide to the Kurdi, bring the Turkeys from Kurdi down here, so Turkey will be free of the Kurdish.
No, none of that works, Hussein. Sorry, 25 to 30% of the entire population of Turkey is Kurdish, and they're not going to settle for a small, tiny part of a small country called Syria. So that particular plan, if there is a plan, it must be some crazy paving, but that part doesn't fit, I'm afraid. Hussein, thanks for the call in Bahrain. Hassan is on the line in London on the same subject, Syria. Hassan, welcome.
Hi, George. Assalamu alaikum. Basically, I wanted to share basically a point which I've personally seen from various videos and footages and news from Syria. So these sort of extremists, which are mainly sort of supported by Saudi and Qatar and Turkey, when you look at the sort of the ideology that they believe, they're saying they're belonging to the Salafi ideology, extremism, or the Wahhabism. And unfortunately, when you see the supporters that they have in the UK, which is some of these so-called Muslims, which you could see sometimes in the streets preaching in a really bad way, rather than preaching with the sort of akhlaq and basically their ethics is they're preaching really bad and violently. And last week, like for instance, they had a demonstration and they were beating sort of other Muslims just because they're not following sort of their same sect. And I remember watching
half of them are police officers anyway, Hassan. Let me assure you that half of these takfiri leading figures are in fact agents of one state or another, one intelligence agency or another. Be sure about that.
That's definitely true. And I remember basically my dad was saying when he was back in uni, like this is like 15 years ago, he was saying that from the Islamic Society after university, they're sort of advertising an event to take people to Kosovo and Serbia, those days for jihad. And after 10, 15 years, basically, it was in the news that the head of that organization, he was a sort of agent, as you just mentioned yourself. And what I was trying to say is basically, I watched a documentary on Channel 4, and it was showing basically the head of EDL and the other side, the head of this extreme Muslim sort of sect. And the imam of the local mosque of that extreme person, who, when that fellow was a little kid, he used to go to that mosque, and that mosque was a moderate sort of Muslim mosque. He was saying that this person, he wasn't that religious even at all, and basically just got the appearance of a Muslim person by growing long beard and basically saying couple words in Arabic, and people just going towards them. And unfortunately, what I can see is even there's in the university, there's quite these guys are quite active, and the universities are not doing anything against them, to be honest with you. And basically, I'm quite sort of puzzled by, I'm sure they're aware of all these sort of activities, but I'm quite puzzled as in why the British government is not doing anything against them. It seems as if they're kind of happy to have these sort of extreme Muslims around.
Well, of course, extreme Muslims are very useful to some people. They discredit Islam. They bring discredit upon the Muslims. They help to divide the Muslims. We saw what happened in Edgware Road the other night, where Muslims were fighting other Muslims, Arabs fighting other Arabs on the streets of London. That's all very useful to the enemies of Islam. That's all very useful to those who wish to pick the pockets of the Muslims, who wish to continue to rule, divide and rule the Muslim world. Hassan, thanks for the call. Let's hear from, I think, Hone in Bristol about Syria. Welcome to the show.
Hello, George. Good evening. How are you doing?
By the grace of God, good. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, God bless you, man. Well, basically, I just want to make some comment about what's going on in Syria. Yeah. The big picture is not what you're really seeing. Is not about Bashar Assad and his regime, you know. Unfortunately, there's a great ignorance in our community and our countries, like nowadays in the Middle East. They're basically too busy fighting each other. Yeah. Shia and Sunni and this stuff. I mean,
not just Shia and Sunni, by the way, honey. Let me make this point: the Mufti of Aleppo was murdered by these people. The Sunni Muslim Mufti of Aleppo was murdered by these people. Christian Orthodox priests and clerics have been murdered by these people. They hate Christians, they hate Shiites, they hate the Alawiyin, and they hate Sunni Muslims who don't take their bizarre medieval takfiri line.
If you look at Al-Qaeda, it's created by the CIA back years ago in Afghanistan.
It was.
And Al-Qaeda has actually done more harm to Islam than anybody else. Even the empires of Rome, through history, nobody can have done so much harm to its Muslim religion than Al-Qaeda itself.
Amen. Amen. Brother, in Bristol, bringing this week's show, unfortunately, to a close. I could have gone on for another hour, at least. I expect that you could have also. I'm very sorry if you've been hanging on the line, hoping to get through. Come back next week where, God willing, I'll be here again for more of the great debate, more of the big conversation. I've been George Galloway. You've been a marvellous audience. May you go in peace.
Hello, if you just comment your name and the place you left that number. And just make sure that your television volume's set to 0. So maybe 0, 0. Can you spell your name for me? Yeah, I know. You redirectly put through the phone number and then we'll call you back. Comment. Can I have your telephone number? Okay, so I'll then comment after this. Call you back to